No doubt. All right, let's just get it rolling, huh? 25 or so. It's good. All right, let's get this thing started. What's up, everyone? Brent Snyder here, Minnesota Junior PGA. We've got this winter seminar series going. We're into week 7 already. Went pretty fast for us. Someone can pop their hand up or something like that if they were on for all the previous 6 weeks. That would be a fascinating deal if someone was on all of them, and this is their 7th one in a row. We're grateful here, a part of the Impact Golf Group. As we get into this education series and just trying to work through all this stuff, we're going to be talking a little bit about college golf today, but quick recap on all of us. We've got Eric Childs. He's a director of instruction at Chaska Town Course, owner of the Chili Whacker. You guys probably see that training aid around a lot. Awesome little training aid to slide you in that slot pretty good with the plane. John Rigsted's on here this evening as well, director of instruction at Keller Golf Club, owner of Rigsted Golf Instruction. So he's over at Keller during the season. He's got an awesome studio downtown St. Paul as well. In the winter months, myself, I hang out over at Troy Byrne and run BSG Golf. Got a full-time teaching pro that works side by side with me as well. And I'll introduce you to Miss Ellen Kinster here in a couple minutes as well, who runs our college advising business for my company. Scott Mcdonald, infamous director of speed for Rip Golf. I don't know if Scotty's on yet this evening. He works with Luke directly with Rip Golf, future Minnesota PGA president. I think he's sitting comfortably in the secretary position, if I'm not mistaken, at the moment. And then Dr. Luke Benoit's on this evening as well, director of instruction over at Interlock Country Club and the founder of Ripstick. I'm just humbled to be a part of this group, and we're really, really excited to be a part of this and have this platform where we're spending time and trying to learn more about you. Someone popped up something in the chat. If someone wants to look at that, that'd be great. Quick recap of the weeks 1 through 6. We started out just trying to introduce all of us and understanding this team that we have with Impact Golf Group, talking a little bit about your motivation and your practice. In the second week, we got into the idea of training and the fitness component, and Ripstick was heavily involved with their trainers and understanding how you can get faster and the power and what that takes. And it's not an overnight occurrence, but there are ways to do it and to do it well. Chili, Eric Childs, and Riggy got into the full swing and the tendencies and different patterns that we see in the full swing on the third week. Shattuck St. Mary's a grateful sponsor of the Junior PGA as well, and Tim DeShormo spoke about the practice with a purpose in the 4th week. 5th week, short game guru. We had Chili doing some work on developing some skills around the greens with the putter and obviously all the wedge stuff. And then Tone got it going on the rules of golf. Always a crowd favorite, but massively, massively important. And now we're going to get into playing college golf, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. I think before, honestly, and I'll probably say this a zillion times, but before we get deep into this thing, any of you know me, I want this thing as conversational as possible. This only goes with Q&A. You guys, we have obviously a wide variety in the audience in terms of age. So you're all at different periods, but you're all on this call because you're super interested in playing college golf. So what's really, really important to us are questions. Don't worry about the timing of the question. If it just pops in your mind and it's not even what we're talking about, just hop right in there. We'd love to hear from you, and I'll just stop. Ellen will just stop, and we'll get right into the questions. So real quick, I do want to introduce Ellen Kinster. Ellen, I'll let her kind of describe her background a little bit and how all this came to pass. And she's been, I don't know, I think it's up to 8 or 10 years now, specifically working for my company. And it's an enormous deal. It's a really big deal. It's a huge help. And I'll let her just describe a little bit about it. Ellen, go ahead.
Okay, nice for all of you to be joining us tonight. And just a little bit about myself. I have 4 kids. been through this college process many times. Got to know Brent about 12 years ago when my daughter was showing a lot of excitement towards the game of golf, and somebody at our club actually referred us to Brent, and I guess you could say the rest is history, because we've been making the trek from St. Paul over to Hudson ever since. And then now I'm doing it on my own. My daughter has moved on. But anyway, so when we were going through the process, she kind of had a breakout year between her freshman and sophomore year of high school. And we started looking for some resources on how do we navigate this college golf scene, and how do we even start communicating with coaches, and what do we need, and all of that. And the more I looked, the less I found. So basically turned to Brent and said, how do we go about this? Let's get started. And so here we are today. After going through it with my own daughter, we kind of put our heads together and said, I'm sure there's other people looking for similar help. So that's literally how this all got going. And it's a real joy to work with every player and every family. And everyone's journey is unique, and that's the really exciting part of it all.
Yeah, good stuff. Ellen's humble as always, of course. Her daughter won back-to-back state championships, her 9th and 10th grade. She actually won the Minnesota State Amateur, I believe, as a freshman in high school. And at the time, she was the youngest player in women's golf history of Minnesota to win that championship. And that has since, the records are always meant to be broken. And it was broken, I believe, Luke, please correct me, that Catherine Van Aragon snuck out 6 months or something like that, who is a student of yours. Is that correct? And he's muted, but we know, I think that's correct.
That's correct. You can get it. I mean, it shows you how, if you work hard, you can get there very early, can't you?
You can get there very early. So that's fun that we have those back-to-back records of 2 young women. It's really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. We were talking early, I think it was probably in week 1, and people chime to me all the time about books and what are you reading and what jumps out at you. I throw James Clear around a lot. He wrote Atomic Habits, and I throw this guy's got some really, really cool information, and this kind of sets the stage here. New goals don't deliver new results. New lifestyles do. And a lifestyle is not an outcome, it is a process. For this reason, all your energy should go into building better habits, not chasing better results. You're gonna hear a lot about process. Try not to get annoyed with me. I don't spend much time with any of my players talking about results or outcome. Now we've been so humbled and blessed to have amazing outcomes and amazing results, and we never even talk about that stuff. We just get up, get better, and period, honestly. And we're going to talk about how that comes into your life, and even if that's in your life yet, you know, and that's probably why you're on this call, for multiple reasons. All right, quick outline. Ellen, what are we getting through today? You want to jump through that outline real quick?
Well, first and foremost, if any of you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate. We want to be a resource for you. So if questions come to mind while we're going through anything, just type it in there and we'll do our best to answer it. Basically, the path to college golf is, there is no path. It's unique to each player. I always use the phrase, there's no yellow brick road. If there was, it'd be super easy and we could just hand everybody a, you know, I do have a binder I give to people, but we could hand you, you know, a packet of information, you could take it and run with it. But our focus is really on the individual. So tonight we'll kind of talk about the goal of junior golf. It's very clear and specific. Getting organized yourself. I'll talk about the puzzle later, but in tournaments are a big deal. Communication and relationships and NCAA rules. That's kind of where it all happens. And then we'll just have a brief discussion about divisions. And in our world, we talk a lot more about experience than we do division. That we're looking, we really want to help each player find the best experience for their college years versus focusing on a specific division to play in college. Awesome. Anything else, Brent?
No, I love it. This next slide is kind of the meat of everything. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this is what is the answer, right? Ladies always first, by the way. International Women's Day. Every day should be International Women's Day, but today is International Women's Day. we've got to figure out your why. You have to figure out your why. I ask that question every single person that walks through my door. I ask them what their why is. Why are they in front of me? Why are they here? What is it all about? Juniors, adults, across the board throughout the game. Now, juniors, it's getting really specific, right? We need to, and maybe you have this, and maybe ask questions if you don't know exactly what I mean. You need to start thinking about, like, what are you doing all this for? Why do you want to play college golf? Is it for coaches? Is it for family? Is it for friends? You know, we're talking about your habits. We're talking about different decisions that you're going to make. And every single decision that you make, probably through your high school career, is probably going to have some effect on your why. And I think what we've realized through our process with all our players is it's almost ever changing, right? We talk so often about the timing of when you get into this, I'm pretty sure I want to play college golf, right? Now, does that happen when you're 12 or 13? That would be awesome. I'm not going to lie, that would be awesome, because this process then can be almost elongated where you can sift through so many different things. We have plenty that cross our door late in their junior year, some even in their senior year, which I'm not going to lie, gets a little tricky. We've found everywhere 100% in terms of placement and playing college golf. Anyone who's ever wanted to play college golf that's crossed our door is playing college golf. But that's not really the point of it. You know, it's not, that's not that big of a deal. That's the player. That's their commitment. That's their motivation. That's because they understand their why. And sometimes there's some sacrifices. And I know plenty of you on this call have already made a ton of sacrifices because you're so passionate about golf. This is maybe me personally. When I'm not with you guys, when I'm not hanging out, when I'm not teaching, I'm playing in tournaments. So the idea of motivation, the idea of betterment is, I don't look at that as a sacrifice at all. It's complete gratitude. It's a complete humbling experience just to be able to play this game, and then to be able to play it at varying levels is, wow, it's all a bit overwhelming, isn't it? It's the greatest thing ever. Ellen, is there anything in the why that jumps out at you that I missed?
No, I mean, you touched on it. I think when, especially when someone's really young, they don't really know their why. It's probably because their parent brought them to the lesson and they're like, okay, I guess I'm going to learn some golf from Brent today or Peter. But over time, it really develops. And I think being open to that, you know, to those thoughts and those feelings developing is really the key, and not trying to figure it all out at once, but letting it evolve.
Yeah, isn't that the truth, right? We kind of gloss over the golf, right? There is a massive assumption that you just love it and you're going to be practicing all the time. And, you know, anytime you're basically, if the sun's out, you're playing golf. If it's raining, you're playing golf. I mean, it's just what you do. I've got hordes of stories of clients and players of mine that went on to do some pretty amazing things. I can think of a young lady right now. She's having a pretty substantial college career. And I remember, I think it was her junior year, her junior summer, I just asked her if she had taken a day off. And she hadn't taken one day off. And I asked her that in September. I mean, if that gives you any indication. Now she's playing at a very high level. So that gets into this whole discussion that we're going to get into in terms of, where does it all fit in?
Does it all match?
Yeah, it's just, where does it all fit in? And that's what the process, I think, is really about, in my opinion. Trying to rid ourselves of that outcome and that result.
We're going to move on a little bit.
Do it.
Our focus and our hope for all of you playing junior golf is that really you're focusing on two things: having fun and learning. Everything else is going to take care of itself, but if you're not having fun, it's really hard to get up every day and work on it. And if your focus is on learning, you can't really go wrong, regardless of what happens on the golf course or off the golf course. So we focus in our advising and everything revolving around the advising on process over perfection. The process, Brent's kind of been talking about that a little bit already, developing a love for all of it, including the boring. You can talk about that, Brent.
Oh, there's nothing mundane, right? I mean, you go and you go and you go. If you're passionate about something, it's never boring. I think it would be really curious if you are brought to the golf course and you're told to practice, or you are just kind of dropped off and you say, okay, have a good time. And after half hour of chipping and putting, you're like, this is kind of boring. Then, you might want to entertain what the best avenue of golf is for you. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It kind of takes care of itself. But yeah, depending on how far you want to take this thing, it's definitely shouldn't be boring. Can I interrupt myself and answer this thing live? I have an anonymous attendee. I'm just going to click answer live. I'm not looking for a career in golf. However, some colleges have excellent education centers. Should I go to the college that has the better education output, or the better college that has the better golf team, and still work toward a degree?
Great question.
Phenomenal question. So I'm going to click done, and Ellen's going to start on that.
Well, that can only be answered by the player. And I referenced the puzzle earlier, and you'll probably see that word again, but our approach to it is that there's this puzzle analogy, and everyone's puzzle has a lot of the same pieces. There's some that are consistent throughout. What puzzle piece for each player is the biggest is what makes it unique. So if it's a certain academic area you want to study, then your puzzle piece for academics is going to be the biggest. If you want to study aviation, there's only a certain number of schools in the country you can go to. If you're excelling at golf at a young age and you want to play at the highest level, then golf is going to be your biggest piece to the puzzle. If you have a family legacy at a school, maybe that's going to, so it just varies. There's so many things to consider. But what you should do is really specific to you and what you want out of it. And the academics are a big part. We talk about academics all the time.
Yeah, huge part. We're going to get into it for sure. Huge part. Quick shout out. I looked on the chat. Quick shout out to Emerson. I've been to all of them and I've learned so much. Awesome. Thanks, Emerson. Appreciate it. Process perfectionism. Did you dive into that?
I did not.
It's a wild trip. I don't think I have a single player that doesn't have some dash of perfectionism. So we look at that as developing that into a strength, obviously, being the work ethic and the commitment side of it. Perfectionism, I have been able over time to see that get a little dark at times as well, and gets a little strange, where you start kicking the dirt, or the club goes back into the bag a little quickly, or some language comes out, or some actions come out because a ball is 18 feet instead of 8 feet. That level of perfectionism may be a bit of a deterrent. I know in weeks past, we've gotten into the stats a little bit, and understanding how challenging the game is, but then more so understanding what the best players in the world do. And I think I have a couple players, some of which are extremely high level, some PGA Tour players that I've worked with that practice a little bit angry, which is pretty interesting to me on the psychology end, that it's just never quite good enough, which is obviously their motivation. It's their why, it's their perfectionism, but not a single one of those players have it affect them on the golf course in the arena. And I think that's probably the really key point to all of this. So I wouldn't be careful with your perfectionism. It's awesome, and it's really vital to a point. I just wouldn't try to swan dive over the edge too far. That would be my personal opinion.
And we bring it up in regards to academics too. We have a lot of kids that.
This is the best. Yes, this is the best. Can I interrupt you right away? Right.
Yes.
So they have all A's and all they get are 4.0s. And the first thing I say, I usually tell the mom or dad to turn around, but I say, will you please get an A-, right? Because we need to somehow find the balance in there. And usually it's pretty interesting. Some of them have like, oh no, I had 1 A-. And I'm like, that's great. Did you cry when you get it? And they're like, no, I got through it. It was fine. So it's a great point, Ellen.
And then the self-awareness, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but really it's, even the question that came in about academics or golf, which should drive it. And really it's just being honest with yourself. Does your drive and dedication match your goals? And along with that then comes your experience, and there's so much that goes into it. But if you want to play Division I golf, like most people do, there's kind of some parameters that are pretty clear in terms of what tournaments people play in and how much they practice and just how they go about it.
Yeah, I mean, usually you can tell honestly, within a half hour or an hour of me spending time with someone, I can already tell, whether, no matter how they tell me, I love for them to prove me wrong, but it's almost not even about that. It's really just trying to find that awesome blend and that awesome fit where they get to enjoy this beautiful game at the next level. And depending how far they want in terms of competition and time commitment and ad infinitum really to that is really what the discussion is. And that circles back really quickly again to the timing. Is that more helpful if you start getting on that journey, 9th grade, 10th grade, something like that? Or is that just a great experience the fall of your senior year, trying to sort it all out? I think we'll let you answer that on your own.
It is a little different now too, and we'll get into it more, but with the pandemic, everything is pushed back. So we all have to be a little bit more patient in the process overall.
Indeed.
Okay.
Quotes. Wow, we've got a beautiful backdrop of Troy Byrne. Was this fall or spring? We're lacking leaves.
Fall.
Beautiful fall day out, Troy Byrne. This is from a longtime student of ours. It's all about perspective. Always remember that you are fortunate to even have this opportunity to play somewhere. Don't let the struggles and stress of going off to college distract you from seeing the bigger picture. You may have the opportunity to play college golf. How many can say that? Now, to our point immediately, this young man is obviously steeped in gratitude and he's steeped in perspective. For someone, he is currently a sophomore. Mm-hmm. So this is a 19-year-old young man that has just the gift of golf. And he's getting a great education. He loves his team. He loves his coaches. He's having an awesome experience. He's from a more rural, smaller town, and he's getting a urban experience, obviously, downtown St. Paul, and loves everything about it. He's out in Vegas right now. He's competing in Vegas right now. Oh boy, this is all right. So this is kind of meat and potatoes. We're getting in the heart of it. Yeah, this is a little bit of meat and potatoes here. So before we hop in, let me see what this Q&A. I'll just answer this live again. I think, is that okay, Ellen? We'll just jump right into these things. So the Minnesota golf season is short. How do you set tournament schedules and priorities in terms of PGA, MGA, USGA, AJGA, and high school golf, etc.? So we've got a lot of sharp people on, obviously, and they're about 4 or 5 slides ahead of us, which means we should probably get going a little bit faster. This question is going to be answered very specifically. We have a chart coming up with all of these different groups, and we've got to sort out the timing of all that stuff in terms of your career and what that looks like and how you make that decision. We personally go through it with every single one of our players. Every single one of our players have a spreadsheet. They have their own spreadsheet of almost all the tournaments. I think poor Ellen spends an enormous amount of time. There are always going to be enormous conflicts, painful conflicts, where sometimes some more travel is necessary depending on your skill set or depending on what tournaments you want to get into. And then having those decisions of how you prioritize what events. So my first thought is inviting your coach into that relationship, obviously, and having that discussion. If there isn't a coach involved, we can talk even more about, you could reach out to any of us. And if you have a question about, hey, does it make more sense for me to play in this or this? Any one of us from the Impact Golf Group will answer that question at any point for you at any time. But we will definitely dive into all these different organizations. Fair, Ellen? Did I miss anything there?
Yeah, that's great. It's true.
All right, meat and potatoes.
Okay. So this is kind of my my role is encompassing all of these things. So getting organized is a big deal. Being on top of things and being able to present yourself well, both on paper, verbally, in person, all of it is important to us. But so getting organized, what we're really talking about for yourself are your grades, your stats and results that obviously relate to your golf, keeping a current handicap, your character, and your why, which will continue to evolve. All of this, all these different pieces are important, and basically they all will flow into a resume and a letter, which you will use then to communicate with the coach. And so getting organized, having this information kind of at your disposal is helpful. I was just working with a young lady today, and she responded and said, I need to get my results together for all of my golf that I've played. Felt like a big task to her. So if you kind of keep track of it along the way, even if you don't know if you're going to play college golf, it can be helpful. Staying on top of your grades, super important. It's really a reflection of your work ethic. So kind of all ties together.
I think it's fascinating. Yeah, well, it's just interesting how it's shifting a little bit too with the pandemic and the ACT. Mm-hmm. I always made the joke with players for years to just kind of get them on the ACT tour, which meant, we've got, what am I thinking of? We've got our tutors on speed dial, basically, because that ACT was a big deal in terms of merit and academic opportunities in terms of financial benefit. And now some schools, they don't even require it, right? So the GPA is, we're having the conversations with our players right now is, what is it all? Is it all GPA related? Mm-hmm. What is it all about? And we don't really know all those answers. And I think next week we're going to have coaches on as well. This is basically a 2-week deal where we're going to have coaches on from different divisions as well. And I think that's a question that needs to certainly be asked to the coaches. Definitely. Is on the academic side with the ACT and the SAT falling back a little bit. Is it all just based off of GPA? Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
And probably involvement, things that you're involved in.
Right.
Golf and beyond.
Yeah, there's a zillion things that obviously go into that resume, but in terms of your academic career, it seems to be getting a little bit more limited.
Right.
Which doesn't make a ton of sense.
We get to your puzzle. Brent mentioned earlier, time is such a valuable commodity, and it is in regards to this as well. Over time, things become clearer and helpful to the player and to coaches and all of that. But when we're talking about your puzzle, I'm talking about things like the size of a school, location, academics. Is it rigorous or not? Public or private? How important is the cost? Every family is unique, and we certainly respect every family's decisions, but we want to know how important that piece is as well. Then you get into the golf. And you'll notice all those other things are above the golf, because it's just, there's so much that goes into, to figuring out everyone's puzzle, but the golf is kind of secondary. Then we start talking about opportunities. Do you want to be able to step onto the tee and be in the number 1 spot? Do you want to be fighting for a spot? Do you want to be, competing on a team that's going to nationals every year? Just what is it that's going to drive you? And then what about the culture is important to you? The team, the coach, everything that goes into that.
This is a nonstop discussion, right? We've got players all over the country that are super far away from home. We've got players that are literally a half hour from home, and they made that decision, right? The academic portion of it is also somewhat tied to the golf portion, right? It's super interesting how all this stuff has an effect, and we can start working through some of these things, and you should start working through some of these thoughts through your high school career. I think the competition side in terms of the golf is a really, really interesting one. A lot of you on this call are, well, you're all exceptional, right? You're on this call for a reason, and you'll all be playing college golf if you so choose. because you're taking the time to do this, right? This is, what is this, a Monday night, and you're just hopping on because you want to learn, right? I mean, that's a big deal. So if you start applying that, then it's like, well, do I want to get into a space where I'm going to try to get to that carrot school that quite honestly feels a little bit out of my reach right now, but I'm going to push and I'm going to grind, and I love the grind, and I'm going to try to get a spot on that team. I don't care if it's a 5% scholarship or if I'm just getting a spot basically. And then I'm not even remotely guaranteed of competing. I'm just going to try to push and push and push and see if I can crack the lineup. Or most of you are going to have exceptional high school careers, and you're going to play some good golf, and you're going to be at the top of your team, and you're used to that. And you're used to that experience. What is that going to be like if you go somewhere and you're not? Or are you just more comfortable with that position and you really want to find a school where you're really comfortable, which for you is probably playing, you know, 1 or 2 in the lineup every single time? Usually when we pose the questions to people like, do you want to play? Do you want to play right away? Do you want to have an impact on your team right away? Most people say yeah, because they love golf and they want to play. Now with that, does that need to tailor some of your location and decision-making process in terms of the schools that you're looking for? So I averaged 77, but I want to play right away for Alabama. Those don't quite match. And at some point you do need to have a heart-to-heart with yourself when you're looking at the tournaments that you've played in, where your current scoring average is, and just the reality. Now, 77 scoring average, as you'll see when we get into statistics, you can play college golf. No problem. You can play college golf. Don't worry about it. You can play college golf with over 80, okay? So you just have to understand that there are places for you. We just got to sort out what you're really looking for. And I think that's really hard sometimes because, yet again, right, everyone assumes or wants, and we're not dream crushers at all, but we need to look at the big picture and find out what the most appropriate fit is. That is what we do on our end. Would you agree, Ellen?
Yes, 100%.
Tournaments, I mean, it's endless. Do you want to dive into this a little bit? I think
Yes.
the slides coming up make even more sense of it too.
Yeah, there's more detail to come, but I mean, the options are endless. Brent always uses the word, you know, you want to get uncomfortable. And as a competitive player himself, he can speak to that one-on-one with every player that we work with. But what that means is, you know, strength of field, get on a different stage, go to a different location, you know, step on the tee with some different bags. I mean, anybody that's involved in junior golf probably knows 90% of the other kids in the field. So if you want to stretch yourself, maybe go play in a tournament that you don't know everybody. You know, see how you feel.
It's got to get weird. It's got to get weird. You got to embrace the weird. It just has to get weird. And I think you can start really local and small. No matter what Minnesota Junior Golf Tour you're on and what age you're at, there is a small learned skill of winning too. You know, it's not great to talk about because it's real process stuff, but there is a side to that where you need to get comfortable being able to kind of walk through that, and it's hard to do. And then as you push yourself, you want it to get more and more strange and more uncomfortable. I've had tournaments in my career where I'm basically shocked that I'm even in the field. And it was very concerning, and I was sweating in all kinds of new places. It's just a totally different feeling. And the reality is it's just like anything else. You just step up, and the mundane and the boring of the effort and the time is always there. I use the iceberg analogy all the time in terms of we put in so much effort and we're so passionate about everything we do, from trying to train people to trying to spend relationships with college golf, everything on the teaching side, everything on my playing side. It's all the same stuff where we're just constantly trying to get a little bit better. And, you know, the people only see 10% of the top of that thing, right? And what's iceberg underneath the ocean is just absolutely massive. Nobody sees any of that stuff, right? So they all just see these little outcomes and they see all the results. They don't see all the time and the effort and the sacrifice that you put in. And if you don't love that portion, if you don't love the bottom side of the iceberg, I think you have to have another real pretty good conversation with yourself. I really do. I call it the swag scholarship is what I call it, right? Well, I just want to play college golf so I can throw it up on the gram and it's like, sweet, I'm going to get a bunch of gear and it's going to be pretty cool. I don't know. I hope and I desperately wish for all of you that it's more than that and your why is deeper than that. That's my hope.
Brent, can I jump in for 1 second?
Yes.
Talk about tournaments. I love to see kids like play down a level and play something that's actually easy and they should expect to win, because that feeling of it's almost like you take it for granted. You don't want that. You think about a champion, Tiger's going to go out there and just destroy the field, and he's going to try to shoot 29 under, even though he should win a junior PGA, SOTA series event. You know what I mean?
Love that. Love
So
that.
playing down is just saying, I'm gonna play unbelievable today. I'm not gonna take a single shot off is really good. And then going out of your comfort zone on the other end and playing up is great too, because you need the same attitude. Every shot matters, and we're just gonna grind no matter how mundane or how difficult that tournament is.
Completely agree, and it's a great point. I'll take it one step further. Before I was at Troy Byrne, I spent 4 or 5 years down in Sea Island, Georgia, and I was around the best players in the world every single day. And I played a lot of golf with these tour players, and at least once a week they played the furthest upmost tee, the closest tee. They played the shortest yardage at least once a week. We're talking about household names that every single one of you know, and we would play as far forward as we can and get as unbelievably low as possible. Shoot really, really scary low scores. Now I get it, 6 out of the 7 days it's tipped out and it's windy and it's brutal, but they would always train their brain being comfortable shooting really, really low scores. Super valuable insight I learned, and Luke just took it to another level.
I agree also, Luke, that the variety is super important. You can't have your schedule be filled with all, in quotes, high level tournaments. You'd really want a balance. There's no question. It's good.
It's a beautiful, beautiful spot for me to bring up the 8th major is what I call it. I can't tell you how many of my junior players are organizing their national schedule around the cup matches, the Minnesota-Wisconsin cup matches, which I now affectionately call the 8th major, because I can't believe how many of my kids love playing in that. Kudos to the Minnesota PGA in terms of having an event that creates a team dynamic between our junior PGA members.
It is a priority for players. There's no question.
Shockingly to a point, right? I mean, we're talking about some big, huge U.S. national tournaments. I'm like, yeah, when is the cup match though? I love it. I love it.
Weird. All right, let's keep going. Oh, another quote.
University of Missouri women's golf team. So this is SEC golf. This is very, very high level golf. This player won multiple, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 state championships in a row. 3 in a row in Minnesota golf. Go in with an academic plan and be a student athlete. That's wild right out of the bat. I mean, this is one of the top players in state of Minnesota for a really, really long time, broke a ton of records. Sometimes golf gets tough. It's nice to have school to focus on. Excelling in school also helps the work ethic on the golf course. Also make sure that golf is still fun for you at this high level. Sometimes it can feel like a job or the hours get long and stressful. Make sure you're still having fun and enjoying the game of golf. So, you're talking about perspective and you talk about levels, right? That level of golf is different than, say, MIAC level of golf. There's not a right or a wrong. It's just a totally different experience. And this player, for example, has to make an effort in her brain to make sure that it stays enjoyable because of the unbelievable amount of commitment and time that her golf is requiring of her life. And she chose those words, obviously, by design.
Okay, I'll get to tournaments.
Off you go. This is
So,
sweet.
We
So
have
it's
2
all-
pages.
Yeah, it's like lined up at the top, yeah? So the stuff in bold is just the varying organizations.
So there's 2 pages. If you're really young, just getting started, you know, there's options within the junior PGA or US Kids. And, you know, believe me, there's so many options out there. If you're wondering what some of your options are at any level, you can call me directly. But then as you keep going, so you get into junior high, your skill level starts to develop. You probably want to bring in a couple 2-day events just to, you know, have that experience, because you're going to want to grow that in time. So the junior tour, maybe some players tour, depending upon where you fall. May try and get into the section championship and the match play. And then you're probably going to start playing high school golf, JV or varsity. And then through the MGA over on the side here, my screen's kind of covered up, but what does it say? The junior championship?
Junior championship, yep.
What's
So
it?
junior girls and junior boys. It just says junior championship for the MGA stuff. Yep.
Okay. So then as we continue to progress, definitely playing high school, you're becoming a more advanced player. Then your high school goals even shift. Varsity, playing in sections, playing in state, through the Minnesota PGA and the junior PGA. You're going to want to try to qualify for the state open on the men's side, or just compete in it if you're on the female side. Junior section championship, match play, players tour. One thing I didn't mention over on this side underneath the high school and advanced skill level, the focus does kind of turn to the 2-day events. We do not seek rankings for any of our players, but coaches do look at it. So it's something to just be aware of when you're choosing events, and any 2-day event will factor into the junior golf scoreboard.
Yeah, the big shift on the junior PGA side of things, we made a big shift last year, is kind of switching stuff up. Going on the players tour, we switched that from 1-day events to 2-day events. It was fairly specific by design, because we think most players in the players tour are making an effort towards continuing their golf after high school. So from that, a 2-day event, your ranking is included. The 1-day events do not. And as we can see from, you know, the players tour going live today, I think Bunker Hill sold out in 4 minutes or something ridiculous. So we're already circling back, trying to get more and more events, because the 2 days are so highly regarded. And players of that skill set are basically only almost always playing in 2-day events or more.
Hey, Ellen and Brent, I'm sure maybe you guys are already going to plan to cover this, but can you talk about the junior golf scoreboard and how many events they look at and how that ranking works, and what is a good ranking?
Al, do you have that statistic in front of you, Ellen?
No, I can get it. Shoot.
We can get that statistic and we can almost send it out. There's somewhat, and Luke, do you know it off the top of your head? There is almost like a numeric algorithm to like when a Power 5 conference will be looking at you, when a mid-major Division 1 would be looking at you. You know, if you're within the top 1,000 throughout the country, you're going to be getting quite a bit of looks from Division 1.
Right. And I think it's your last 5 events, correct? The last 2-day events, and that's where your ranking
Yes,
comes from.
Exactly.
So
yes,
And it's a rolling 365 days. So you have to continue. We have some players that towards the end of the year last year didn't compete in them, and so they're kind of falling out of the ranking, which is tough.
Yeah, this idea of like, you get some players that are like, well, I don't know if I'm going to play in the winter. I don't, I don't want to hurt my ranking and stuff like that. I've never spoken to a coach around the country that doesn't want a player playing. Like ever. Like I can't think of a single coach that's ever said, yeah, I don't want him playing, because
I'm gonna just say this one thing though, like you need to learn how to play in the winter. Going on a spring break trip and shooting 82. Here's the thing: if you're an old guy, if you're like Brent or one of us that we've been playing golf for 20
Dude, I am not that old. Like
you're as old as me. You're older than me.
I just hit 40.
So old guys tend to go on trips and play how they play. Maybe we're not good, but we play at the level we play at. Young guys don't get it going, and young gals don't get it going as fast on a trip. So you need to learn how to play on a trip, and it's different than just going to a tournament. So just know you have prep time if you're going to go do that. That's one thing I would say.
Yeah, great advice. We, obviously practice rounds in a couple days on the front end. I've had players, and this is almost pandemic related as well. I can't tell you how many players we've had all over the country all winter long, 2, 3, 4 week spans where they're playing tournaments and going to school. And then they get, to Luke's point, they get on a little run and it gets pretty cool. A couple of them just jump down there in the first round. It's like, whoa, right? And it gets a little weird. And they immediately go into, well, I've completely lost my window of playing college golf. Right. So, and that's not the case, let me assure you. And I had a great conversation. It was just a couple of weeks ago. I had a great conversation with the player and he completely flipped the script. And I mean, he just got after it. So there's a lot to that, but it's a really big point. It's a really big point. Where were we, Ellen? Sorry, I interrupted. We got 2-day stuff with the players tool.
That's okay. So then you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory what's on the page here in terms of, adding in the USGA amateur and junior, and then the junior tours. And then when you get to the highly recruited, really strong experienced players, then it shifts from a focus on 2-day events to really 3-day events if you want it to flow into your WAGR ranking, World Amateur. So
yeah, that stuff gets smaller, but you want to keep pushing, then these are great little carrots to start looking at. These are some really big stuff.
So the idea really with the tournaments is it's a progression. You're not going to jump in at, if you're just getting started, you're not going to jump into, playing the USAM qualifier necessarily, but you're going to build up to it. And oftentimes when we work with players and I'm looking at a tournament schedule, we're kind of planning 2 years at once. This is what makes sense this year. And then let's see how it goes. And maybe these are ones that we add in future years. So it's all varying, right? It's to the person, it's so to the individual, right? I mean, we had a young man, I think his highest ranking was under 20 in the country. He's almost in the teens in the country. So he's literally one of the best players in the country. His schedule is going to look a little different than someone that's 2,000-3,000. Mm-hmm.
And it needs to be, and it needs to be.
But it's a progression.
100%.
Yeah. Anything else from you guys? Luke, Eric, John on tournaments? No?
What is this great resource from the panelists? Thanks, Sean. Is that First Tee deal? Unmute yourself, Luke.
Thanks, Brent. Yeah, nice little overview. Looks like cool little thing to check out.
Okay, sweet. And other people can see that and grab it?
I believe so.
Cool. That's great. Thanks, Sean, for putting that out there. Communication, relationships, it's the whole deal. Ellen, what's the NCAA it's gotten, right? I mean, it's wild right now. Dead periods changing. And
I think we're on, is it 15 or 16 months of a dead period? So really, really tough for players, really tough for coaches. You can't go on campus and talk to a coach or have an official visit. It's really delayed a lot of things. And I guess for us, it's really identifying that with the kids and letting them helping them understand that it is really a tough time, but it's also tough on the coaches. There's no coach that wants to be in this dead period all this time. So what that means is you can't have visits. They can't come and watch you play. I mean, literally all they can do is watch a scoreboard on their computer to see how you're doing.
I'm going to interrupt you.
That's where the communication is so huge.
I'm going to jump in for 1 second and grab these questions live real quick. What if during the off season, back to the tournament side of things, what if during the off season, the financial side of things comes into play where you can't travel to places and play in these big tournaments? How would you still get attention in the off season if you can't financially pay for these big events? Awesome question. You don't have to travel the country to get recognized whatsoever. I have had a ton of players locally that basically have just played locally, have done exceptional locally, and great coaches around the country have found them. Now, that did take some process on their end as well. There was a ton of communication. There was a lot of relationship building through the years, right? So if you're not playing winter tournaments, that's fine. You're grinding, you're working, hopefully you're practicing and have a place to hit balls. And I can't tell you that some of the videos I get through my direct message, people are very creative. You don't need a TrackMan Bay with a simulator in order to get good at golf in the winter. Okay. I mean, people are hitting foam balls at their brother. I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. So you can constantly be working on it. And then I think communicating and keeping in touch with the coaches, barring you had a fall or a late summer or a fall that you're growing on and you're building on through the winter, you try to keep that communication up and you're working really hard, and then you get after it. And you get after it in the spring and you keep going and keep pushing. If you play great, go ahead, Ellen.
No, I was just going to say, in addition to what you've said, is really it's about being proactive with your communication. When we have a lot of kids that, talk about wanting to be noticed, and our whole thought process is we can't wait to be noticed. You want to start reaching out, figure out what your puzzle looks like, and then start reaching out so that coaches learn about you and you're not waiting for them to find you. You are letting them know that you're interested in what you're all about and what you're working on and what you're working on with your swing coach and so on and so forth. So being proactive is a big part of that, and then continuing the communication is everything.
Awesome. Looks like we have the sharpest young little 9-year-old girl here as well. I'm 9 years old and I had a blast playing in 6 events last year. How many events should I play in this year?
That's a good question.
Well, how many do you want to play in? If you had a blast, I'd play in some more. And if you keep having a blast, I'd play in a few more. Look, at 9, to be honest with you, I think you still want to be able to jump in the lake once in a while and do a lot of different things also. So I would think finding some balance between all of that. But if you had a blast, I'd play a few more. Maybe sprinkle in a couple different ones that you didn't play in the year before.
It's a good question.
Great question. I mean, we've had some people where we almost had to tone them back a little bit. They're playing multiple tournaments per week the entire summer. And we have some, honestly, that by choice. Everything's by choice. Mm-hmm. And we've had some, obviously, that play, 2 on average, maybe 2 to 3 events per month. Mm-hmm. So if you're just talking the summer, then, you're only looking at 9 or 10 events, something like that. And we have some, honestly, that play 20 plus.
So back to the NCAA rules, the one piece to this that's super important to know is that your swing coach can talk to a college coach at any time, whether you're a freshman in high school or all the way through your high school career. So just keep in mind that the swing coach does have that ability, and hopefully you're working with someone who is willing to reach out and build those relationships with college coaches.
Yeah, I think all of us from the Impact Golf Group obviously have relationships with coaches around the country. This is a huge part of my life work. So I have a lot of relationships with a lot of coaches, and it builds over time. And, the biggest thing is I love people, and I love motivated people, and all you guys on this call, it's the same type of thing. We end up, we vouch for you. You're finding the right arena to be playing in, but we can contact coaches and talk to coaches all the time about our players, and you build great rapport with players and with coaches. And then all of a sudden it kind of gets, after that June 15th, as you're going into your junior year, some of those relationships are already built fairly nicely from the progress that you've done in the years past.
So then we get into personal growth. This is the coolest part about the work that I do, is watching players develop. And it's, I mean, yes, you develop great skills on the golf course, but personally, you grow from oftentimes someone who's super shy and, you know, really has a hard time pressing the green button on your phone to call a coach for the first time, to becoming very comfortable with a lot of new situations. So our work with players revolves a lot around communication, written and verbal. So sending letters, resumes, schedules, updates, and then repeating that over and over, just building these relationships, finding opportunities, figuring out what you're really looking for, and then, you know, narrowing the scope of your focus for sure. And then verbally calling coaches, talking to them, learning how to share, you know, key information about yourself, and then planning visits and preparing for those, and on it goes.
On it goes. It's a lot. Just keep going and keep going. Sometimes you don't hear from them. You got to keep going. You have to keep going. If you really never hear from them, then you might need to move on at some point.
Right.
Some of the coaches' communication might not be as good as yours. Take that however you'd like. But sometimes you don't always hear back, and maybe after a couple times you do end up hearing back, you know. But have some other people involved too. Get your PGA coach involved or something like that, and start finding ways where you can get in touch with the right people. You can always get in touch with them at some point.
Another quote for you, Brent.
Troy Byrne, looking at 14 green. Spring or fall? It's got to be fall.
Might be fall.
St. Catherine, all women's university in beautiful downtown St. Paul, part of the MIAC. Coach Mary is a coach there and has done an amazing job. St. Kate's has become almost a leader now in the MIAC. Make sure you know how the coach acts on the course and what they do with the players out there to see if it will be a good fit for you. Start looking for colleges early, narrow it down, visit your favorite schools more than once. It's nice to make a decision early so you don't have to continue stressing about it. Have fun too. I laugh, sorry to laugh. Obviously, we know our players very well, and this young lady is a fabulous player and broke records at St. Kate's and is having an awesome career, but she's also just a bit of a worrier, I'm not gonna lie. So even in her quote, some of that comes out, which I love. That's so great.
But it's so true to learn as you're going through the process, learn about the coach. What are they like? Talk to the players on the team. Get your questions answered so that you arrive on campus knowing as much information as you possibly can. Okay, onward. Division.
Yeah, we've got a lot. We go till what, quarter after or 10 after?
Yes. Yeah, we have a little bit of time left.
Okay.
Want me to go?
Sure.
Okay.
What do we got? It's just division stuff. We can go through it fairly quick, but I'd like to get through all the slides for them at least.
Yes.
I mean, we've touched on all this, right? We're just focusing on the experience more than division. College golf at each division, what does it all mean? The quality of the player, the realities of those qualities, the level of commitment, schedules, scholarships, academic merit, athletic. I could talk about the scholarship portion for a very long time. We're over $4 million now with Brent Snyder Golf for college scholarships that we provided for players. Well, we haven't really done anything. We just have a bunch of amazing players and we love them and they're a part of this process, and that's what it turned out to be. Athletically, it's really, really pretty interesting. What are the women up to these days? I think it's 6.0 on the Division I level for women athletic scholarships, and the men have 4.5. I have only had in my career three or four men that were offered a full ride Division I. That's how rare it is. Some of those guys are on tour right now, by the way, right? It's extremely rare. Not one of those players that was offered a full ride on the men's side took the full ride. They went to a different school at less of a scholarship because of all of their whys, whatever their why was, right? Coaching staff, experience, academics, the whole deal. Women, we've had quite a few, a handful more. And Ellen, you can go to the next slide when we're talking about just the statistics and where all this stuff is coming from. I think on the academic side, it's really interesting though with the financial, right? You get a private institution, say Division III or Division II. It's amazing on the academic side. We have a lot of players that are high character, high individuals that work really hard in the classroom. They had good ACT scores, which may or may not matter. Hopefully it still matters, but all this stuff comes into effect. And it's pretty typical at that level from a private small school where they're going to be offered $20,000 to $30,000 a year. Per year, we're talking per year for their merit award, which would be a really big ask at a Division I level to get that amount of money. I mean, you're talking about, $120,000, $150,000 from just their academic work and going to a smaller school. So it's really interesting. Real quick, you guys can, and this will all be online as well, but you start looking at all the levels of college golf. Division I, high ranking, Power 5 conference, they're good. Average college yardage, this is for the women, 75 or under, 6,200 yards. A couple examples there, Minnesota and Wisconsin, Iowa State. You can see the top players are all within a shot and a half of each other. And then you can see the range is fairly tight in terms of their top players or their impact players. There's only 2 or 3 or 4 shots between all their impact players. Their tournament experience obviously is at the highest level. Division I, mid-major stuff for the women. Average score a little bit higher, yardage goes down a little bit. Top players still very similar, a little less yardage, but still very similar. The range is a little bit wider. Still exceptional tournament experience, exceptional junior careers. Division II, high-level NAIA. Average goes up a little bit. Yardage stays about the same. Still exceptionally good players. U of Indianapolis is a misnomer there. That Brent Nicholson's going to be on the call next week with us as well. He's a fantastic coach, and he's got one of the best Division II men's and women's programs in the country. They basically play a Division I schedule, and you can see he's got a bunch of really, really good players. High-level experience all the way across the board in their junior career. Division III, you still see high-level experience all the way across the board. Yardage a little bit shorter, averages obviously a little bit higher. Great players still on the top end, but the span of it gets a little bit wider. Can we quick see the men's statistics and see how those compare? So, high ranking, Power 5, just unbelievable players, right? Really big yardages, shoot really good scores. Parameters are really tight on scoring averages. Junior careers are absolutely unbelievable. An elite player is trying to figure out how to get a quarter of a shot, half a shot better, like in a year. I mean, we're talking really, really small stuff. And then as we go down, Division I, 7,000, still playing big ones. Obviously, the top players are exceptional players. They are exceptional players. The gap gets a little bit wider between the starting and then tournament is exceptional tournament experience, same way. Division II, touch higher, playing a little less yardage. 7,000, honestly, that might be a touch high. They're probably in the 6s, probably closer to that 6,800. Still great players. There's U Indy making a splash again, obviously way up there. Exceptional tournament junior experience, right? Everyone is playing a bunch of high-level events, and they love it. They understand their whys. Division III, a little bit higher, a little bit shorter. Great players, great players. Been fortunate to teach multiple MIAC champions. Every single one of those players could have played at the Division I level, and they chose a MIAC school. We've got one of the greatest Division III conferences in the entire country for golf. So we're very, very blessed in this region. And to your point about college and the experience, go hop on, go try to get out on some of these schools, go look around, get a feel for all this stuff. We've got so many great institutions right in our backyard. We want to use all that stuff to our advantage massively.
I think the MIAC, the top 25 That stat is super interesting. The range of scoring averages 71.4 to 74.9 rivals any D1 program. So to Brent's point, the top 25 in the MIAC, they're making that decision to play in the MIAC for a variety of reasons. Back to their puzzle. Their puzzle had a lot of pieces that are important.
The golf ball doesn't know where you're playing, folks. The golf ball doesn't know, and it doesn't really care. If you love golf, you can ball anywhere. Just get after it, right? This idea of like it has to be in a certain way just to match what you think it's supposed to be. I just don't know if that's the case.
I think the best thing any of the juniors could do to learn more about players at a certain school, go out to the program's golf website, go to their news tab, and go back to November. And whoever they signed, they're going to do this great write-up about their incoming players. So you can learn all about what their best performances were, and then go back to Google and put their name in and start doing some digging as to what they were playing in when they were a sophomore or junior in high school, what their scores were, and see their progression through junior golf.
Right, because the newsreel is always going to say they just recruited the greatest player in the history of golf, right? Which is great. They're super excited about it. And then you look into that player a little bit and say you're on here and you're 12 or 13 years old. See what that player was doing when they were 12 or 13 years old. I bet it's a little different than what that newsreel says on when they got signed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great point, Ellen. Great point.
We're nearing the end.
Gustavus. Gusty. I should let Luke read this. He's not present. Another big thing that I found important when looking at colleges was to be open-minded. You will most likely hear people's opinions or different stereotypes about a college before you visit there, but do not let this impact your visit or shape your college decision. Awesome. Committed player.
Committed.
Understands his why.
Definitely.
Massive overview here. We're just trying to get you all fired up. Get excited. There's a ton of opportunity out there. Try to discover them. If you don't know your why, or if you just learned that for the first time tonight, start thinking about that. Figure out what it's all about. Who's running the show? Who's leading this thing? Is it internal pressure? Is it external pressure? Figure this whole thing out and start figuring out why you are on here tonight, why you're so fired up about golf, and what motivates you. Working hard, we explore like crazy. It's unbelievable the amount of information you can get about programs throughout this country. Just unbelievable. Learn as much as you possibly can and grow like crazy. I'm not a big fan of neutral. I'm always thinking about let's keep going. Let's just try to figure out a way to get a little bit better in every single aspect of your life, right? Every single aspect. What else is there? We got massive questions. Nope. Just because we answered them as we went, or what?
I don't know.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions? Anything come to mind?
Hey, Brent.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind talking, I just tell a little story about when I was growing up and, not figuring out a way I loved college golf. And everybody had these high expectations, Division I. But if I could go back 20 years now and find something like this, it would have been so helpful. And to everybody out there, it's a great program. What Brent and Ellen have been talking about is a unique opportunity to find what you want to do. And please do that. You can figure this out. We're here to help. But I wish, if I go back 20 years, I wish I could have met you guys, and I wish I could have had a chance to really figure out my path like you guys are doing. So, yeah.
Ricky, man, I appreciate it. I think all of us, we're just so humbled to be in a position where we can just help people. There's nothing more that we want to do other than just help as many people as possible. And, when you start looking about this college advising, and Ellen, I'm super grateful to you and your willingness to, this is what we do. I mean, this is what we do, and we spend all our time doing it, and we love every single second of it. The ability to be a part of someone's journey and have them make their own decisions. They're the captain. They just have decided to create a support structure around them when they're going through this college process. And John, I appreciate it, man. We're just so humbled to be on that. We got a quick question here. Maybe it's not quick. I haven't pulled it up. How does Minnesota stack up and compete against those from South when it comes to college recruiting? Awesome. It's an awesome question. I mean, I can speak to it personally, and next week we're really going to get into it. I'm real close with Justin Smith, and I'm starting a relationship with Rill, who is the new women's coach. I'm sorry, Justin Smith is the men's coach for the Gophers, and Rill was recently hired as the women's coach for the Gophers. Both Justin and I are very close friends, and I'm starting a relationship with Rill, and both of them multiple times have already told me all they want to do is beat up on the Southern schools. They want to do everything they can to make massive championship teams here in Minnesota. Now, how does that stack up in terms of recruiting? It really depends on the individual. I've had multiple players through the years be top 50 in the country and have every single Power 5 school looking at them. From Wake Forest for women, from Auburn for men, all over the map. So yes, you can get there, and it can get pretty serious and pretty big time, but it takes an exceptional amount of work. So you have got to absolutely love the work. Quite to the other question earlier in the night, I would say over 60–70% of those highly ranked juniors that I've worked with didn't travel the country. I've had plenty get offers from household name schools without traveling the country. Now, granted, they made some serious splash in the Twin Cities market, certainly.
We are fortunate to have great opportunities for competition within our state and our region. I mean, we didn't really touch on this a ton, but I mean, there's tournaments down in Iowa, there's some in Wisconsin, Nebraska. Yes,
I mean,
a little bit of a drive,
Dakotas,
but you're not traveling too far.
Yeah, there's so much. Sanford's doing a great job down in the Sioux Falls area. And just look at Minnesota golf in general, just this community, this entire region, not even Minnesota golf. I mean, look at the Ryder Cup and look at that experience that we had here.
Mm-hmm.
We're nuts. We're into it. Is cost a problem? One more quick question here. If cost is a problem, how should we approach the college golf area? I think depending, I don't know how deep of a question it is, if it's mainly pertaining to traveling and if it's resources on traveling and things like that, don't worry about it. Play around here. And if you can play around here and you can find, there are a variety of organizations that have less costs associated with them. We can find events that have less cost. If even the events that we're talking about are creating some concern, then we start finding some other events that are more appropriate, more fitting. And then it's communication, it's videos, and it's all the other stuff that we had talked about. There are still plenty of ways to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree, Ellen?
Definitely. There's endless opportunities out there. And we keep learning of new ones every year and happy to share any and all.
Totally. Okay, we kept people way too long. I can't thank you enough for giving us this opportunity to spend time with you. Thank you so much for your attendance. Real quick, next week, Junior PGA, Minnesota Junior PGA is putting on college golf seminar. You can hop online and register for that. I've got, as I said, Justin Smith and Rill from the Gophers, so men's and women's program. I've got Scott Moe and Eric Rowland, both coach men's and women's at their respective schools, Gustavus Adolphus and Augsburg University. And then Brent from the powerhouse University of Indianapolis is going to hop on as well. So we will.
He coaches men and women as well.
He coaches both programs. Correct. So we've got all three divisions covered, and I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut and just let those coaches do most of the talking. Appreciate everyone so much for coming on. Have a great evening. Did we miss one more chat? Thank you so much. Have a nice rest of your night. Thanks, Emerson. Lovely. Thanks, Emerson. Y'all take care. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a great evening.